right, let's dive into this.
Okay.
We're looking at some pretty bold claims about India's middle class today.
Yeah.
We've got some what looks like excerpts from a YouTube video script,
Okay.
and it's asking some tough questions about the economic situation for
Mhm.
really a huge part of the Indian population.
Mm-hmm.
The script's pretty blunt.
Good.
It argues that basically corporate profits are going way up,
Right.
but the middle class is getting squeezed.
Interesting. A compelling narrative for sure.
Yeah.
And it taps into a lot of the anxieties that Indians are dealing with today.
Right.
The source uses this metaphor of squeezing the middle class,
Yeah.
then jumps right into a story about India's finance minister
Oh, okay.
and some controversial comments he made about
Okay.
the goods and services tax, or
Yeah,
GST,
the GST.
which is basically like a national sales tax.
Yeah, I remember that.
You do.
Wasn't it about different GST rates on different types of popcorn?
Exactly.
I feel like that really set a lot of people off.
It really struck a chord.
Yeah.
I think it became this symbol of how out of touch
Right.
the government's priorities were
Yeah,
with what the average person was struggling with.
for sure.
And the source ties this to a bigger trend they're seeing.
Okay.
Declining profits for companies like Hindustan Unilever and Nestle India,
Right.
big FMCG companies,
Yeah.
fast-moving consumer goods.
Ew.
The source is saying this means the middle class is shrinking and buying less everyday stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So how does the source define middle class in India?
good question.
It seems like kind of a broad term.
It is.
Yeah.
They use this framework from Kishore Biani,
Okay.
a prominent Indian businessman.
Yeah.
He divides India into 3 income segments.
Yeah.
India 1 is the wealthy, high-consuming class,
Right.
about 120 million people.
Mm.
India 2 is the aspirant middle class,
Okay.
striving to move up about 300 million people.
Got it.
And then India 3 is the majority of the population, including those struggling with poverty
Right.
and lack of financial security.
Yeah. So it sounds like the source is mostly worried about what's happening to India too.
Exactly.
This group that's trying to reach middle class stability.
That's right.
Yeah.
They highlight the growing challenges this group faces
Mm-hmm.
to afford just basic necessities,
Okay.
which lines up with that data on declining FMCG sales.
Right.
But this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The source brings in some different perspectives
Okay.
on why this is happening.
All right.
They quote a few Indian CEOs
Oh, boy. This should be good.
who blame workers.
I've heard some wild stuff from CEOs.
Well, these are pretty provocative.
All right. Lay it on me.
They say Indian workers are too lazy
Okay.
and need to work 70 hours a week.
Wow.
Ditch the weekend.
No weekends.
No weekends.
Wow.
They even say Indians are too influenced by
Okay.
Western ideas about work-life balance.
Oh, wow. So basically they're saying
Right.
people aren't working hard enough.
Yeah.
And that's why they're struggling financially.
That's their argument.
But wouldn't that mean companies aren't making much profit either?
Well, that's where the source has a pretty strong counter.
Okay.
They show data that corporate profits in India
Yeah.
have actually been skyrocketing.
Wow.
We're talking a 4-fold increase
Okay.
between 2019 and 2023.
So profits are up, but wages aren't keeping up.
Exactly.
That seems like a big problem.
It's a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
Even India's chief economic advisor
Okay.
has admitted this growing disparity.
Right.
Profits are surging,
Right.
but employee compensation
Ah.
hasn't changed much at all.
Wow. So we have these two totally different stories.
Yeah.
CEOs saying work harder,
Right.
and then data showing record profits,
Yeah.
but wages are flat.
It makes you wonder if there's something else going on.
Yeah. Definitely seems like there's more, Caleb.
The source thinks so.
Okay.
They say to really get what's happening to India's middle class,
Yeah.
we need to look closer at the tax system.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
Let's talk taxes.
Sounds good.
Okay, so is the source saying that the Indian middle class is paying too much in taxes?
Yeah, that's their main argument.
Okay.
They point to the corporate tax cuts
Mm-hmm.
that the Modi government did in 2019.
Right.
They were supposed to help the economy grow,
Right.
but the source says it actually cost the government a ton of money.
And how did they make up for that lost money?
Well, the source says they made individuals pay more,
Okay.
especially the middle class.
Right.
They say that individual income tax now brings in more money
Okay.
than corporate tax in India.
Wow. So regular people are paying more than big companies.
It definitely goes against what most people think.
Yeah, for sure.
And It's not just income tax. They're also critical of the GST.
The GST, right? We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, they mentioned this Oxfam report
Okay.
that found that a lot of the GST revenue comes from the poorest 50% of earners.
So the tax hits the poor and middle class the hardest.
Exactly what they call a regressive tax.
Right, because it puts more burden on the people who can least afford it.
Right, and this leads to what the source calls the affordability crisis.
Okay, the affordability crisis.
Yeah, they say these tax policies plus rising costs make it almost impossible for people to afford basic middle-class things.
Like what kind of things?
Like owning a car or a house.
Yeah, that's something I've heard a lot about.
It is.
Cars and houses seem so expensive in India.
They are.
Especially for the average income.
They break down the price of a Toyota Fortuner.
Okay, a Fortuner.
Popular SUV, to show their point.
Okay.
They show that taxes make up a huge chunk of the price tag.
Wow.
The government actually makes more money
from each Fortuner
than Toyota does.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it shows you how much taxes affect affordability.
Definitely.
And it's not just cars.
Right.
Housing is also getting out of reach.
Yeah.
Property prices are going up.
Right.
Plus, you've got stamp duties.
Registration fees, and even GST on construction.
So owning a home is pretty much impossible for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, it's a distant dream.
And renting isn't much better.
No, it's not.
I hear rents are skyrocketing in cities.
They are the source site's data showing that rents for a 2-bedroom apartment are up over 60%.
Wow. 60%.
60% in the last 5 years.
So the middle class is getting hit from all sides?
Exactly.
Wages aren't going up?
Right.
Costs of essentials like food and gas are rising?
Yeah. And then taxes make it almost impossible to afford big things.
Right. Like a car or a house.
It paints a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah, it does.
For anyone trying to have a decent standard of living.
For sure. But the source doesn't stop there, right?
No, they don't.
They also talk about the quality of public services in India.
They do.
Even though people are paying all these taxes, they argue that Indians aren't seeing improvements.
Yeah, and things like infrastructure, transportation.
Even basic stuff like clean air and water.
It's like they're saying we pay taxes like England, but get services like Somalia.
Yeah. A powerful statement, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that. It shows that people are frustrated. They feel like the government isn't delivering. Yeah. Even though they're taking all this money from people.
Exactly. And the source connects this back to corporate profits and tax policies.
You're right.
They say the middle class is struggling.
Yeah.
But wealthy corporations are benefiting from tax breaks and loopholes.
So they might even be avoiding taxes.
They could be using offshore havens.
So it sounds like they're saying the system is rigged to help the rich.
That's what they're arguing.
And the middle class gets stuck with the bill.
And they don't get good public services.
Right. So basically they're paying more for less.
Exactly. And they go even further.
Okay.
They say that the government might actually be intentionally neglecting public services. Things like education and healthcare.
Wow.
To force the middle class
to use private options.
To use expensive private options.
Which makes corporations even richer.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big accusation.
It is.
It's like they're saying the government is working with corporations.
Yeah, prioritizing profits over people.
That's a serious claim.
It raises some big questions.
Yeah.
About corporate power.
Right.
Government policy. And how healthy our democracy is.
Right. Because the source brings in research from a Harvard economist.
Robert J. Barrow.
Okay. Robert J. Barrow.
He says a strong middle class is super important for a stable democracy.
So they're saying that if the middle class is struggling,
it could be a problem for India's democracy.
Wow. So this isn't just about the economy then, it's about the whole country.
Right. They're saying when the middle class struggles, it can really mess things up in a democracy.
Yeah.
Like it could lead to social unrest.
Unrest. Okay.
Yeah. And political polarization.
Right. People getting more divided.
Exactly. And people just lose trust. In the whole system.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
I mean, the source makes it sound pretty bad.
It does sound pretty bleak.
Yeah.
But they do end on a hopeful note.
Okay.
It's kind of a call to action.
What do they say?
They want listeners to see that they have power.
Okay. Power to do what?
To change things.
To change things how?
Let's say we need political change.
Political change.
To fix these problems.
Yes, they want people to be more politically active.
Yeah, to hold their leaders accountable and push for policies that help the middle class.
Yeah. Basically make the system fairer.
Exactly. They want people to think about who's benefiting from the way things are now.
Right. Who's winning in the current system.
And then use their voices and their votes to demand a better economic situation for everyone.
That's a pretty powerful message.
It is.
It's like they're saying, even though things are tough, we can still make a difference.
Yeah, individuals can still create change. That's the idea.
It shows how important it is to be informed.
To understand what's going on.
Right.
And then actually get involved.
In the political process.
Exactly.
So to sum up, we've looked at these claims that India's middle class is under pressure.
Right, caught between growing corporate profits and a system that seems to be working against them.
Right, and we saw the evidence they presented.
We did declining consumer demand.
Okay.
Wages that aren't growing.
Yeah.
And this tax structure.
Right.
That many feel is unfair to the average person.
Yeah, we heard from those CEOs who blame lazy workers.
And then economists who talk about deeper problems.
Right, like tax breaks for corporations.
Yeah, and the influence of wealth.
On policy decisions.
Exactly. It's complicated.
And we ended with this call to action.
Urging people to get involved.
To build a better future for India.
A more equitable future.
It's a reminder that we're not powerless.
Yeah, we all have a role to play.
In making things better. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Into the state of India's middle class.
We hope you'll keep learning about this issue.
And think about how you can help create a fairer future.
For everyone, thanks for listening.